Well, Mike, thank you so much for hopping on with me. Like I said, I don't want to steal a whole bunch of your time here, but I can tell you how impactful your work has been
I love hearing it already.
on me. I mean, I'll tell you, when your book Profit First came out in 2014, I was very young, but very quickly after that, when I had my first business partners, that was one of the first books that we all read as a group and felt that the need to do so. Now, with that said, I had one partner that was like dead set on accountability and we're making this happen and this has to happen. And I had a couple other partners that were on board. They loved the idea, but it was this romantic idea to them rather than, no, these are rules for the trade, right? And the reason why I even start with that is I really think in many ways, Profit First is kind of a staple in today's small business world, similar to like the E-Myth, right? In that regard. One thing I wanted to ask you though is, we're coming up on 11 years, right? July 4th, 2014, Profit First comes out. What would you have added to that in today's market?
Well, I mean, more and more we can rely on AI and tools like that. So I think we can do deeper analysis. I wouldn't change the fundamental system though, because what a lot of people don't understand about Profit First is a cash management tool, but it really is a behavioral tool. So my research was 80% behavioral based. Why do we do certain things? And we have these inherent biases and wiring and behavior. When we see some money, for example, this concept called Parkinson's law, we'll see what's available and we'll actually spend up to what we see. We will cheat the systems. We won't log into the accounting system. We'll simply go to the bank account, even though we've been told. So the fundamental system wouldn't change. I think with the advancements of AI, you can look at what your path has been so far and really nail why it's not working, our tendency to change. You can actually see your behaviors play out in history. We couldn't do that before, not easily. Your accountant would have to really plug in and say, this is what you did. Now you can pull it up instantly. And I think that would motivate more people to leverage our natural wiring than try to fight against it.
It's funny you say that because that's one of the things that I was going to jump into in terms of, one of the principles that you cover. And it's actually, I think you have an entire preface to the topic, but it's making your money as hard to get as possible. And those other two partners that I had mentioned, or other three partners that I had mentioned that were a little more skeptical with that was one of the sticking points with them that was kind of little difficult for them to grasp. But what you're sharing with me is it's less about making your life difficult. It's much more about being resourceful.
Yeah, so how we are wired as humans is we work very well with what is presented in front of us. We are very resourceful, but also there is a cognitive load that our mind constantly saying, what's the easiest path that requires the least caloric burn? So what's just the obvious easy thing? I'll do that. Well, the more money we generate, the obvious easy thing is just to spend the money, just hire someone to do that, just pay for this, to get the technology. It's when we have less money, now I can't do that. The brain has to start burning calories saying, well, what's the alternative paths? So that's the great irony. You'll see a lot of businesses over time making more income, but their spend runs in parallel. Every time I make another dollar, I'm like, oh, I'm a dollar richer. And the next morning, I'm like, I'm a dollar poorer. Where did it go? It's because of cognitive load, caloric burn avoidance, and so forth. So with Profit First, what we do is when money comes in, we take your Profit First, hence the title, we hide the money from you. This does a few things. Our ability to use willpower to not do something is minute. It's like a muscle. It fatigues over time. So I can say, I'm not going to spend money. I'm going to reserve it. But as long as that money's in front of me, tempting me, at a certain point, that willpower gives out. And I'll say, well, the easier path is just to use the money, and I'll justify it. So first we remove it and hide it, making it inaccessible or at least hard to access. Then it reduces the amount of money available to operate your business, which then forces our mind to say, well, how am I going to get the results I want with this money I have? Resourcefulness kicks in. Necessity is the mother of invention. It's unbelievable. And just to put a little bow tie on this, we have over 1 million, we think it's about 1.1 million businesses globally that have deployed Profit First. They're growing faster on average than their competition, and a lot faster. And the reason they're growing faster, because we think it takes money to make money, you got to spend it. No, it takes innovation to challenge industry. So these companies just do what no one else is willing to do, and then they step in front of the industry.
And you find that when they get through the mental hurdle, those actual financial barriers when it comes to shrinking budgets are much easier to employ.
Exactly. Exactly. I got a beautiful message from a great friend. His name is Jesse Cole. He's the founder of the Savannah Bananas, who is exploding in popularity. More and more people are aware of this baseball team. They deploy Profit First from day one. And he sent me just a week ago, they were performing a game at their biggest event ever, 75,000 people in the audience. And he just said, I want to thank you, Mike, for what you did with Profit First. And really, it touched me. But the reason I'm just sharing this story is they intentionally did things that extracted money from the business. And it forced them to have hard conversations with themselves. For example, they didn't have enough money. They have a stadium in Savannah Bananas. They said, we don't have enough money to operate our scoreboard. They said, how's that our advantage? When there's a lack of something, I think most businesses will just give up and say, no, we need money to get it back. But the great businesses will say, that's our opportunity. That perceived weakness is our opportunity. So they said, no scoreboard, we'll have the audience walk the score through the field between every inning, kind of like it's a boxing ring match. And the audience got into it. And they engage the audience in such unique ways. They're wildly innovative. They've redefined baseball. It's not baseball. It's the Harlem Globetrotters for baseball now. And I'm not saying Profit First is the only reason, but it forces those out-of-the-box thinkings.
No question. And it's crazy to me because I think you're seeing this, the reason why I started there, and I really want to get into the pumpkin patch because I think it was very prolific in many ways. And I want to jump there. But, in 2014, this is right after, I would say, massive bloating a couple years before that finally hit a reckoning. And that was just over leveraged. Everybody, everything was raising money, over leveraged. And anybody paying attention now can see that there are certain similarities and there are parallels over the last couple years that have been happening in the economy. Now, whether we're able to turn that around or not, but the reality is that Main Street has just really been hurting in many ways. And I think now, ironically, over the last month or two, we're seeing Wall Street too. But it comes from the same root problem. And I see this in technology companies that I've worked with or even started is they do the same thing. There's this routine. There's this, I call it the Shark Tank effect, where there's like their natural instinct instead of getting resourceful is to go raise capital. And then they're required after doing that, even if their idea is amazing, they are required to meet that debt service. So now they can't stay within their lane because they need to meet the debt service. So we got to do this, and this. And then these three things end up overtaking what they're actually doing on a daily basis. And now they lose their way. And we see this constantly, like all over the place. And I think there is going to come a time where it's going to have to reshrink, and just kind of people are going to have to get resourceful again, right? Now, jumping real quick to the pumpkin patch here, in a lot of ways, the pumpkin patch talked about, this is before it was a thing. Like now everything we're on podcast here and, is content this and content creation that, and, but really niching down and getting that one lane and really focusing on that and cultivating that and growing that. Yeah. That's what I mean by it was very prolific in that way, because now everyone says like niche the niche, get that. But they weren't really saying that in the beginning in a lot of ways. Where did that come from for you?
Yeah. So, and just to give context, the book title is The Pumpkin Plan, and I talk about the pumpkin patch. No, that's okay. But I talk about the pumpkin patch strategy. And so what is the pumpkin patch? Well, there's a certain group of individuals who grow massive pumpkins. They're the colossal pumpkin farmers. So I studied these patches and discovered how they did it, ultimately becoming the pumpkin plan, the strategy. And what they do is change a few things. They focus on a few pumpkins and they delete or remove the other pumpkins constantly, which brings about a massive growth. Here's the best analogy when it comes to business. If I was called, if you're sharing, and I'm sorry, your father had a real health event there. Your father, could you imagine, and I don't wish this upon anyone, but one of us is rushed into the hospital because of something, and two doctors come out. Doctor one says, I'm interested in performing heart surgery, but I'm also a brain surgeon. I do pediatrics, geriatrics. I'm just, trying to dabble in everything. Haven't done many of these, but, are you interested? Or Doctor two comes out and she says, All I do is heart surgery. I specialize in your exact circumstance. I know exactly what to do. I have a 99.9% success rate, and we're ready to start today. Who do you choose? Of course, Doctor 2. We want the doctor who's going to save our life. Well, when it comes to buying from a vendor, a portion, not all, but the portion of the consumer base wants the best solution. Usually, it's when I see the solution as maybe not life-saving, but life-altering. So say I make websites. There's a consumer base that says, I just need a website. I don't care. It's cheap. They'll go to the generalist. But then there's a certain community that says, this website defines me. It is my most important marketing piece. I'm willing to pay a massive premium for this. And if you look at doctors, if I'm looking for a general doctor, I'll look for someone in my vicinity. If I'm looking for a specialist, I'll circumnavigate the world for a person that can cure me. Same thing with specializing in our business. We have a choice to make. Yes, you can be a generalist, but you're going to attract the general audience with general needs in the general vicinity, and generally, they won't pay more than a commodity price. You're commoditized. Conversely, in the pumpkin plan, identify that if you are the elite specialist in anything, now the customer base around the globe seeks you out because you are the absolute best. You can solve their problem and or satisfy a need they have, and you are presented as life altering. Now we have to make a choice. To be the best, you can only do one thing. And you got to do it better than anyone else in the world. And that's how you become the best. So it requires a very narrow niche focus, repeated capabilities in it, extreme capabilities above any of the generalists, and then you get worldwide recognition. The other benefit is your margins skyrocket. People will pay a premium for that. Doctor number 2 can charge a big dollar amount. Doctor number 1, they're getting the copay, and that's about it.
That's so key because, I mean, again, I'm not saying that people have piggybacked off of this writing, but you do have things like $100 million offers, and I could name more books, but their entire principle is decommoditizing their service, right? And turning it into a unique best of class, right? Entire business models off of creating the authority, right? And that's kind of the idea behind content marketing in the first place, is to become the authority in that regard, which is part of the reason why I'm like, man, looking through everything, reading through it, going back through my old library when I read these things back in the day, I'm like, these were way more prolific than even I realized when I was taking notes and reading them and trying to bring it to my partners back in the day. Something I want to ask is probably a little left field for you, but I think you're really capable of doing it. So you just mentioned just Profit First alone. You're talking about like 1.1 million businesses, around that range. That doesn't include the other writings that you've done and different businesses that you've worked with. So you have such a 30,000 foot view of such a macro. You've seen these principles applied to so many businesses. Where do you think the markets, and I don't mean the stock market, I mean Main Street.
Main Street market, the best market in the world.
Right. Where is this, what do the next 3 to 5 years look like? I know there's a lot of question marks in that, but from your 30,000 foot view of what you guys are able to get your head around.
Yeah, so there's a really interesting opportunity that presents to the Main Street America when there's major shifts in the economy, and I call it the ripples. So a major shift, for example, a few years ago was, now maybe probably 10 years ago, is the advent of ride sharing. So Uber, Lyft, and these different programs. The question then comes about is when there's a shift and one industry dies, taxi, or at least changes, and one industry rises, what are all the ripples that come out? Well, one is these are all self-employed drivers. They are actually small micro businesses. Whole new accounting systems came out just to cater to that, or developers plugged in or made software that now plugs into QuickBooks to cater to these unique needs. So what a small business owner will do, which is smart, is say, when a big movement happens, what can I do around the periphery where there's gonna be waves? The gold rush of whenever that was, 18 something, 17 something. When the gold rush happened, the old story is if you were selling shovels and Levi jeans, that's how you made your money. It wasn't on panning for gold. So now AI is in the forefront. The question is, what is the ripple effect? And I think the business owners that jump on that, the obvious things are, I can make my own app, but is there non-obvious things that you can look for? Maybe AI is going to innovate the way people shop. Can you redo the layout of your shop to be AI friendly? Could someone come to your store and there's a QR code and it says, scans your phone and your AI is going to walk you through and be your shopping partner? It's the people who jump on the big trend that's moving and grab the little micro ripples that are going to be the best beneficiaries. Small business is always primed for this because we can react and adjust. We could try that QR code idea, and maybe it's a great idea, maybe it's totally stupid, I don't know, but we can test it out. And if it doesn't work after a couple of weeks, we can try something new. It's the big businesses that need to invest resources and R&D and people. They move at a mammoth rate, very slowly. So that's what we need to grab, the ripples.
What do you see as the shovels and Levi's? Like just kind of hypothesizing. Is that even a word?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I love it. The shovels and Levi's. So I think watch what the consumer is doing with the main technology. So right now, people are interfacing with ChatGPT and they're befriending it. So if they're having a conversation with it, where can our service be an extension of that? As an example, maybe I'm a therapist and I do one-to-one therapy. Can I now supplement that with AI? Could I actually record my therapy sessions, put it into AI, and tell my patients, hey, this is some kind of ongoing dialogue you could have? Maybe that's a Levi's. When customers shop, watch. They used to do the Google search and seeing if Amazon has a better price. Now, some people are going on ChatGPT and saying, is there a better quality or a better alternative? Is there something that you can create a prompt? When someone walks in your store, you scan it and a prompt puts information in there for you. That's where they are. The funny thing is, we don't necessarily know what the Levi's or shovels are until we try it out because we have to see what people buy. Back when the gold rush happened, there was thousands of new products created that we don't talk about, and I don't even know what they were because they don't exist anymore. They were the failures. So just try something. If it doesn't work, try it again. If it doesn't work, try it again. But iterate quickly on a big movement.
That's huge. So, it's funny you're talking about that because I actually made a major career shift about, I would say 6 years ago. I was doing my thing. And I won't go too deep into it, but just worked with some of the largest international corporations in the world in the technology space. It's never as sexy as it sounds. number one, and number two, this is when kind of like the agency concept started. A lot of social media marketing started to happen, and then coaches came up, and I remember I was working with a group, and it was not cheap to work with them, and I'm working with them, and one of the guys says, this is a gold rush. This is a massive gold rush. And then I don't even know why. Everything about what they were doing was great. They were wonderful. They were true. But when he said that, what you shared popped into my head and made me go, how much did I pay to get into this group? It is a gold rush. But wait a minute, that first millionaire out there wasn't mining gold. Wait a minute. And it really just got me thinking, and I couldn't let that leave my brain, and I ended up doing a shift, and I had to learn entirely new skills and kind of do skill stacking all over again and jump into different things, right? And it's part of the journey, but it did really get me to realize, okay, I need to think, a year, 2, 3, 5 years instead of right now, right here, right? And that's putting the systems in place is what, the pumpkin plan, Profit First is all about here. What do you see as maybe the number one skill that I'm going to caveat this outside of communication, because that's a given. But outside of, Andrew Carnegie, I always mess his name up.
Dale Carnegie?
Outside of making friends, winning friends, how to influence
that's Dale
people.
Carnegie, how to win friends and influence people.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm all over the place. But outside of Dale Carnegie, what do you see as like the number one skill?
I would say the number one skill is actually what you did, Quentin, and it's problem identification of what's the cascade of problems. I'll give you a little story. I interviewed Brian Smith. He's the founder of UGG many years ago, over a couple of days. And he shared a story. He's like, oh, that's how you grow a business. Look what the major innovation is, and then look for the ripples of problems and then solve those problems. So here's what he did. Back in the 70s, this guy, Brian Smith, is into the surfing scene. He's from Australia. He comes to the US. He watches surfers. Well, the big innovation that caused ripples was the advancements of neoprene. Neoprene is the swimsuit, if you will, that surfers wear. Well, back before the 70s, it's thick, like stuffing material that you'd find in a box kind of thickness. Well, advancements had made it thinner and thinner. It was very thin, able to retain body heat, but also giving mobility. What that means is surfers can do sets in the ocean in the freezing winter by staying warm. Except you keep your feet exposed because you need to grip the board and you keep your hands exposed. What Brian Smith noticed is these surfers who are never doing sets in the winter before are now out in the middle of the Pacific and running in after being out in the ocean for a bit and running to the fire to heat up their feet and their hands, wrapping in towels. He says, this advancement has caused new problems. AI will cause a ton of new problems, and that's where the opportunity is. So he said, people are looking for warm feet. But the problem is they're cold, they're wet, and they want to get warm. So he said, and they don't have a boot, so they're trying to warm up the fireplace. You can't have a mobile fireplace. He's like, but you can have a boot that addresses cold, warm feet. So that's when he discovered or brought to the US the UGG concept, which is shearling, which is a material, it's a natural material that brings heat, collects your heat from your body, absorbs moisture, and does not build odor. It doesn't absorb the bacteria. So you can get odor-free boots. So he brought the UGG boot, and there's more to the story, but he solved a problem and it exploded. We need to do the same thing. The big thing is AI. We all know that. The ripples are first ripples of frustration and problems because it now presents something new. We then bring the solution to that. That's where the opportunity is. If you smash that one skill, I would even say that trumps communication.
So where would you start then? Would you, start writing a list of the problems that bug you in your daily life and then try to solve them? Or
you self-observe. I mean, we're best designed to solve problems that we experience. I think we're best solved to stay within our lane. So I'm an author. I'm an entrepreneur. I own a few businesses, but I'm an author. And so I know the author space experientially pretty well. My job is to say, how is, in this case, the major movement of AI going to shift books? And what frustrations and problems are people experiencing now? So you don't need to buy a book anymore. You just go on AI and say, summarize the book. So what's the frustration? Well, maybe they missed case studies or the applicability. How can I solve that? And so maybe no longer I write books, but I write solutions for the missing elements. I don't know, but I got to start sniffing it out. The best thing is to observe clients. So reach out to your existing clients if you have them and say, what frustrates you now? Where are you getting stuck now? Look for the common thread and then try to find a solution for that.
When you were writing your book, it's like the old adage, I guess not that old, but everyone was telling, some of the OGs in the podcast world, everything's getting shorter. Everything's getting shorter. What are you doing making these 2 hour, 3 hour, 30-minute, like no way, no one's interested. Were they telling you the same thing? Because I know there's a lot of pressure in the print world. And I'm a huge reader, but I'm maybe not the common person in that regard. Were they telling you that when you were diving into this?
Yeah, I was definitely hearing that, cut it down, make it short. There's a famous song by Billy Joel where you got to cut it down to 3:05, he says. And that's true, but they miss the other part is the binge. We go to the surface until we like something and we binge. We actually are going deeper than ever before. So my response to that was, well, how do I make it binge worthy? Not how do I make it shorter, because that means it's flat. How do I make it so desirable that you got to read every chapter like it's a brand new episode of your favorite streaming show? And so that's how I countered it. And I have a new book I'm working on right now. It's coming out in 2026. And I every step of the way, I'm like, is this binge worthy? And we're testing with our community of readers saying, are you hooked on every paragraph? And I think that's the new standard actually authors need to elevate to, binge worthy.
So just up the ante, cut the fat, keep it on point.
Keep it on point, but keep people, we want to be entertained. We want to be educated every step of the way. We want to be, oh my gosh. And we want to be thirsty to consume more. So I absolutely heard, cut it down. And that's true, but they were missing the other half of the equation where I decided to make my time investment, my effort.
That's crazy. Actually, that's one of the first times I've ever heard that perspective. It's like, no. The other side of this, I've never even heard anyone mention, is make it binge worthy, right? So that's awesome. That's really, really awesome. Well, last question here, because we're coming up on the last 2 minutes here. But small businesses are selling more than ever before. You have a retirement wave. In a lot of ways, I felt like if Profit First came out 30 years before, you just outside of your control, but it could have come out 30 years before because the baby boomer generation, the most entrepreneurial generation in human history, a lot of them didn't build the systems around their business. And a lot of that is what I do when I connect with them. And it goes, oh man, what do you see happening there with this so-called silver wave? And maybe in terms of that gold mining, how can someone jump onto that?
Yeah, so there's an opportunity to acquire businesses, and people are like, I barely am building my own business. You mean acquire a business? That's so outside my space. Oh, you can do what's called seller finance buying. You can buy businesses without or at least by substantially mitigating your risk. You don't have to come up with any money. You go to someone selling and say, listen, you want to retire. There's value in your business. You may not be able to sell it otherwise, but I'm interested in acquiring it as long as I know this business works. And so what I'll do is I'll purchase the assets and I'll give you a percentage of the proceeds from that revenue it generates to offset what we agree the purchase price to be. And then once I earned it out, then the business is mine. It protects both of you. A lot of people will exit their business not by selling their business, by just folding up and saying, I guess I got to close the doors. Most people are not prepared to sell their business, which is an opportunity for the acquirer to offer something that's fair for both. Now they're making money that would have been made otherwise, the seller, but you're protecting yourself. You're only paying on what's assured revenue. So that's the opportunity in front of us.
Wonderful. Well, Mike, where can people find you real quick?
Real quick, it's MikeMotorbike.com. My name is Mike Michalowicz. I had that domain too, but no one can get it. Mike Motorbike, nickname from grade school. .com is where you can get all my books. I used to write for the Wall Street Journal. I have a really new, cool, exciting announcement coming out this July, which I can't share now. It's all available at MikeMotorbike.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time here.
Thanks, brother. And best to you and your family, your dad.
Thank you.